Hi, I'm Greg Dell with Dell Disability Lawyers. I'm here today with attorney Stephen Jessup. And Stephen, we're going to talk today about one of your resolved cases against Hartford Disability Insurance Company. And we do these videos all the time to talk about success stories that our firm has had with these cases, but also to educate potential Hartford disability claimants about what they can expect if their claim has been denied, and also some tips to help them to avoid a denial in the future. So let's get into the history, the background of your case, and then we'll move into the strategy that you put in place to win this long-term disability appeal.
Yeah, so this case is pretty wild. When the client contacted me, he'd been on claim for 22 years when he was denied.
22 years?
22 years when he was denied. Now, initially his policy was with Aetna, and then Hartford bought out Aetna, and then started a review, and that's when his problems really began. Shortly after.
Okay, well, right there it was a trend we've seen, because we know the behavior, and it's funny, we did a video the other day talking about how important it is to know the behaviors of the different companies, but as soon as you tell me Hartford took over for Aetna, that just goes to show, because we know Hartford denies a lot more claims than Aetna used to.
Yeah, so 22 years on claim. He had initially went out on claim with a diagnosis of HIV, wasting syndrome, neuropathy, and pain associated with. And when Hartford took over and started their review, the first thing they did was pulled all the medical records and saw that everything was pretty normal. The HIV was well under control. The medical records didn't have a whole heck of a lot of information with respect to restrictions and limitations, new complaints, and things along those lines. So Hartford took the opportunity to say, well, we reviewed your records, and it appears that you've stabilized, that there's nothing necessarily wrong. We don't see where there's would be restrictions and limitations here for you. Now, to Hartford's credit, they did try to ask and say, listen, we would like to send you to an independent medical examination, because our doctors and your doctors have a disagreement with regards to things. So we'd like to send you to an IME. The only problem was they wanted to send him to an IME in March of 2020, right around the time of the lockdowns for COVID.
Right.
So it wasn't something that he felt comfortable doing. And honestly, I think they'd be hard pressed probably to find a doctor who'd be doing IMEs around that time. So the client said, I much prefer not to.
Plus he was high risk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'd prefer not to do it this way. And Hartford said, fine, you don't have to go. We'll do an independent review. So they hired an outside company to do that medical review. So Hartford was, even though they were setting him up, I think, in a really kind of nasty way, they were doing a little bit more than you typically see in one of their reviews. So their independent reviewing doctor, again, pulled all the medicals, looked at it, of the same opinion as Hartford's initial reviewers, that I don't see anything here that would warrant ongoing restrictions and limitations. Well, the problem was then that doctor reached out to several of the treating physicians, and one of those treating physicians had said, I would agree, everything is stabilized, there's really no restrictions and limitations at this point. I agree with your findings of physical ability, which is basically could do sedentary work. So then Hartford obviously denied the claim, and that's when he contacted us, for purposes of helping him with his appeal. One of the things that I do see here, and I think is the biggest cautionary tale for anyone on claim, whether you've been on claim a year, 2 years, 3 years, here's someone 22 years, you need to make sure that the medical records are still documenting, what's going on, what the issues you were having. Because when you spoke to him, delved into it more, he was experiencing a lot of problems, like, the wasting syndrome, and a lot of the problems he had from the early diagnosis of his condition has permanent neuropathy and pain. So the doctors weren't necessarily documenting his reports to them about how bad that was. So that was like one of the first things that I knew we were going to have to tackle. And we also had to show from a physical standpoint, why he wouldn't be able to perform, the duties of any gainful occupation at this point. Besides the fact he'd been out of the workplace for 22 years, it'd be pretty darn hard to kind of go back into a workplace setting after 2 decades. Every time they update our computer system, it takes me at least a week to figure out something new. So we had arguments vocationally, and we also knew that we had to give them, his claim some teeth on the physical side. So we did utilize functional capacity testing to show he basically, not so much the pain really, because we're not talking about back problems, but his fatigue. He just didn't have endurance for work. And that's what the testing thankfully came back showing. And then we were able to use that. I spoke to his doctor, who had said, oh yeah, I agree with, Hartford's treating doctor. He kind of explained everything. He's like, well, I think he misinterpreted what I meant. And then he was able to get me a pretty detailed letter explaining the complexity of the medical situation, things along those lines.
Right,
So.
because to back that up, and this happens all the time, it's one of our top 5 reasons for denial. It's when the insurance company's doctor or nurse calls the treating doctor and they basically say, like you suggested, is there any restrictions, limitations? Mm-hmm. The doctors will be like, no, I'm thinking activities of daily living. Like he can walk, he can talk, he can feed himself, he can dress himself, he could
lift
go to
10
the
pounds
store,
maybe, and
right.
Various things like that.
But the question never was, I bet, to the treating doctor was, could he commit to a job 40 hours a week, 5 days a week, as a reliable employee with maybe 2 weeks of vacation, 52 weeks a year?
Which would have been an easy no any day of the week for the doctor. So we were able to get that from the doctor. He was very supportive in it. And that, along with the functional capacity evaluation, our arguments with regards to the vocational analysis, they said that he could have been a food service clerk making $18 an hour. $18 an hour, and according to the Department of Labor, that's basically like the equivalent of someone working in a cafeteria. So we attacked that these jobs don't exist in his local economy and all that type of stuff.
Let's talk about that a second, because a lot of these denial letters that we see, they propose these jobs, and a lot of people get them and they go, well, first of all, does that job exist? Is it required to exist? Meaning, does the insurance company have to prove that the claimant could get that job and it's available in their market? Is that a requirement for the insurance company?
It's not that they have to prove that they could get the job, just that job exists in the market. So they say, our doctors think you can do X, Y, and Z. This job requires these skills. We think you could do that and it exists, but it's not a showing that you could actually get the job, just that it does exist. And sometimes they even try to argue, and I've seen in their reports where they'll say, these jobs exist in the national economy. Well, it doesn't matter. If the client lives in Florida and this job's available in Oregon, it does him no good. It has to be where he's at, and those are some of the underlying arguments we can make, because a lot of times the vocational reports especially are so template oriented that it's like they don't put a lot of additional thought too often into them, and they just kind of slap some things on, use some buzzwords, and call it a day.
So 22 years on claim and then denied is one of the more extreme ones we've seen. I actually remember having one that was about 27 years where someone was on claim, which is amazing because you get this letter and it says, oh, we think you could work. Yeah. So like you're going to apply. Could you imagine the application for this person?
Where have you been for 22 years?
Here's my job. I've been on disability for 22 years, but my insurance company thinks I'm ready to go back to work. Like that's insane.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. But what's not insane about it, and where disability insurance companies take advantage, is that his records became very complacent, stale, like you were saying. And the tip to take away from this video also is that you can't let them ever get stale. You always have to assume at any given moment that there's going to be someone new at Hartford or any disability insurance company that is going to look at the file and take advantage of the fact to say, look, we saw you went in, you reported, you showed up, they gave you your meds, you didn't complain about difficulty walking or sitting or standing or any pain. You just went in and said, Doc, I'm here for the checkup. Okay, let's renew your meds. And that's what happens basically when you have a relationship with the treating doctor for an extended period of time. How are you? Doc, I'm functioning, I'm getting by, pain's under control, fatigue is the same. Like, what else is the doctor going to do? The doctor's there to make you happy as a patient, to try to treat the condition. The doctor doesn't treat the chart, they treat the patient. And unfortunately, when it comes to insurance companies reviewing a file, the insurance companies are treating/looking at the chart, not the patient. So that's the real reality of what goes on. That's where we come in. Let's assume we were representing this claimant and managing his claim. We would have been reviewing medical records every couple months. We would have been coaching him as to, here's what your doctor needs to put into the records. Here's why you need to keep a pain or symptom log and bring it to your doctor and have him either attach it or read it into your log. All things you can do so you never let your guard down. And that's the trouble. Unfortunately, they cut his benefits off for a short period of time, but you were able to jump back in and had a doctor who was cooperating. We have seen doctors who could have gone where they go, no, I don't think he has restrictions. I think he could work. It's rare, but it happens. You have to have a cooperating doctor. So in terms of the package you submitted, because you did an appeal and you didn't talk about that, what did that look like? What was the actual substance of it? How many pages was it? What did you resubmit to Hartford
In this one, I thought we could execute very precisely. In some of them, there's a lack of, especially newer claims. The insurance company may not have all the medical records. Here, there wasn't a whole heck of a lot of treatment to be able to provide. So we, got the most recent records and a year prior to even the denial, just to play it safe. The functional capacity evaluation, and then the letter itself. I think that's where a lot of the argument lied. So I think the total package it's kind of on the small side for me, around 50 pages total, with regards to it, and a lot of argument made into it, because we wanted to set it up not only to get him back on claim, but he was so turned off by what happened, he wanted to be done with them. So the goal was to set it up in such a way that not only would they agree to put him back on claim, but also present it in a way there's no way in the future they're going to be able to argue that he's going to make a return to work. So after they approved the claim, I received the approval letter and immediately reached out to one of the contacts I have in Hartford settlement department to begin negotiating a lump sum settlement. And just recently we did negotiate a settlement for him, and Hartford's out of his life for good now.
And what does that mean when you get a Hartford settlement?
So they basically are saying, we are going to pay you X amount of money for you to walk away from the policy. So it's a product of the present value of the policy, how much time is left, the amount, and then discounting for various actuarial things, what the value of the policy is. And we negotiated a lump sum settlement. So he's free and clear of Hartford. He doesn't have to worry about them surveilling him, wanting to send him to a doctor, updates, requests for information, any of that stuff now. Actually, I just heard from him the other day, and he's like, it feels good to wake up not having to worry about them anymore. And that's a lot of peace of mind for someone.
Right, and he's done. It's a complete release.
Yep.
He can do whatever he wants if he's able to, and Hartford can't come back to him for anything.
We even discussed, I'm like, listen, if you wanted to try to get some part-time job, you're on Social Security, they have the ticket to work, contact them, and they have options so you can make, some additional money if you do want to, do something, get out of the house, and not have to worry about how Hartford's going to interpret any attempt for a return to work too.
Right. Well, it sounds like a great outcome. Congratulations to the claimant and to you for doing a good job. If you're somebody who has a Hartford long-term disability claim, feel free to reach out to Stephen or myself. No matter where you live in the country, we always provide a free initial phone consultation, and we look forward to talking to you in the future. Hi, I'm Gregory Dell, the managing attorney of Dell Disability Lawyers, and I hope you find the video you just watched helpful. We put these videos out all of the time, and we'd love if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel. Beyond our videos on our YouTube channel, we also have lots of information available on our website at diattorney.com, and we encourage you to come to our website. The goal is that we want you to be educated about the disability insurance process, and when you get to our website, you'll see that we have information all about your specific disability insurance company, your occupation, and your medical condition. And we've designed our website such that you can easily search our website to find things that you may specifically be looking for. Now, at our website, we have thousands and thousands of pages of information, hundreds of videos that you can search, plus we're building a section of reviews of all the disability insurance companies, and we have the Ask Our Lawyer section where you can go ahead and ask us any questions that you may have. Now, we realize that you may not need us right now, but you may need us in the future to help you with your disability claim, and we think one of the best ways to keep in touch is by clicking the button below and subscribing to our channel. And most importantly, again, no matter where you live in the country, we're always available. Just go ahead and give us a call. We're happy to discuss your claim and let you know immediately if we can help you.